Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a Wednesday morning. I am recording. I have the music going. I would like to show you guys something. This is Wednesday. Turning the page here. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we're done with this book. So we have to decide, what am I going to do next? Am I going to do the ink and wash? Hi, Elizabeth. Am I going to do the ink and wash? Am I going to do the fountain pen? Am I going to do the... oh, that's dirty. Am I going to... what am I going to do next? And then today... we have this tiny little dinosaur. Not really a dinosaur. It is a pterosaur. It is a pteranodon. I believe this is more of a distraction than anything. Set that someplace where it doesn't start a fire. Alright, I'm going to have to try and do it blind. This thing is tiny. And the instinct, the last few times I've had tiny toys, the instinct is to draw the composition tiny. And you know, you don't have much to work with. If you draw big, there's not a whole lot of detail to draw it big. But there's enough detail that if you draw it tiny, you spend way too much time on it. So we'll just hit this composition phase real quick. This is not a safari toy, so the accuracy is not all that great, but it is a fun little dinosaur, or a fun little pterosaur rather. It is, I believe it's meant to be a pterodactylus. Not to be confused with the common pterodactyl, which means literally winged finger. But that's a pretty generic name. The Pterodactylus is a group of pterosaurs. That are, you know, still wing fingered. But this group has teeth, no tail, little to no tail. And that's what I have here. This thing has teeth and little to no tail. And so that's what makes me think that it is meant to be a pterodactylus. This is one of the least understood of the prehistoric animals, because they find lots of fossils of them as, you know, pterosaurs, but they don't find very many fossils of them as anything prior to pterosaurs. And that bothers them. Because what's it related to? How did it evolve flight? How did it become a pterosaur? Why does it have a P at the beginning of it? That is almost always some intellectual trying to show how smart they are. It has a P at the beginning of it. Because ptero means flight, means wings. And rather than do away with the silent letters, we have to include the silent letters. Because we have to show how smart we are. Ptero. It's like the old joke, you know, why can't you hear the pterosaur going to the bathroom in the woods? Because they're extinct. Ah. No, nerd. It's because the P is silent. But when you tell that joke, you can tell that joke either way. If they come back and say it's because they're extinct, you can say no, it's because the P is silent. Or you can say, or they might say because the P is silent, and then you can just follow up with no, it's because they're extinct. And you can make it where they can't get the answer right. Why can't you hear the pterosaur go to the bathroom in the woods? Because they're extinct. No, nerd. Because the P is silent. That works with just almost any dinosaur joke, by the way. Why couldn't the Tyrannosaurus Rex drive the car? Because they're extinct. No, nerd, it's because the T-Rex. Da, 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 da. This pterodactyl goes into a bar. The bartender says, "Hey, we have a drink named after you." And pterodactyl looks around and says, "Really? You have a drink named Steve?" There's just not a whole lot of detail. I mean, I know there's a rib cage. I know I could pick that thing up. I know I could turn it this way and I could see the rib cage, but from this angle, I can't see that rib cage. I want to draw that rib cage, but I can't see that rib cage. And that's the important thing is can I see it? Can I see it from here? No. No, I cannot. I cannot see it from here. But it takes form pretty quickly. Because of its size. Realize this is one of those things that would have been better on a Tuesday. Because we're more pressed for time on a Tuesday. Let's clean up some lines. How are we doing on time? It's already 5:43. We're doing great. So, I am, if you can't tell, a dinosaur nerd, and I have raised a family of dinosaur nerds. My son last night, I tell him I think this is a Pterodactylus, and my son last night pulls out his little pocket dinosaur identifier, and he's like, "No, Dad, I think this is an." And we went back and forth for a few minutes, until I pointed out to him, "Son, this is a very inaccurate toy. It has teeth and no tail, and it has teeth and no tail to speak of, and no crest. So it has to be something along the lines of a Pterodactylus." But we spent a happy 15 minutes going back and forth about what kind of pterosaur this is. But I can tell you that it is not a pteranodon because it has teeth. Pteranodon means wings and no teeth. So I know it's not that. Can't talk. Arting. But I can tell you, and this is probably too down the rabbit hole, too scientific, that yesterday while I was watching the documentaries, which is what I love to do, I'll pull out the toy and I'll say, well, what can I learn about this thing? And I will go down the rabbit hole. And yesterday, while watching the documentaries, if you're a dinosaur nerd, you have probably heard many, many times that pterosaurs and the aquatic reptiles were not dinosaurs because they were not on land. They technically have to be on land to be considered dinosaurs. But yesterday, through a lecture on great courses, which is basically college lectures, a series of college lectures over anything you want to learn, I found out that they are not dinosaurs because they separated from the dinosaur class about 200 million years ago. Prior to the dinosaurs splitting into the two major groups, Ornithischian and Saurischian. These things have a square hip, which means they are not the ancestors of birds. They are the cousins of the ancestors of birds. And the sea reptiles are amniotes, which is what humans are. And they separated about the same time that the pterosaurs did. And that birds and pterosaurs existed about 60 million years together. Which is something that I'm not sure I knew before I watched the documentaries on great courses. And so if you're an evolutionist, you've got to be asking yourself, what caused the split? How did they split? Where are the fossils? If you're a creationist, you're like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. They all split off at the same time. So, it's the kind of stuff that keeps me awake at night. That's the kind of stuff that I lay there in bed thinking, well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? But I will tell you one of the things that bothers me about watching those courses is when they present stuff as absolute fact. The crests were used for displays for mating practices. You have no way of knowing that. You have no way of knowing that. You are guessing that based on how current animals might be using their crests, like cassowaries or peacocks. You don't know that. Don't present it as a fact. And on great courses, to her credit, on great courses, she said we don't know what the crest was for, but we know that in modern animals, this is usually what it is. So to her credit, she at least admitted that it was an estimate, that it was a best guess based on what they knew about current animals. It is a toy I have to remember to give thickness to the plastic. I'm starting to sing along with the generic rock and roll. How we doing on time? Ooh, it's 5:52. Okay, Mom asked if my screen is changing, and then she said, okay, it is. I don't know. Every time I look up at it, it's the exact same scene. So I don't know. But I can see that the scene changer shows to be active. Doing a little scumbling here because I want more accuracy. I want to make sure and preserve that reflected light right down there in the base, in the where that nose is, where that snout is. I want to make sure that I preserve that reflected light where it won't look round. Same thing with that mouth. I got to make sure that the inside of the mouth. And we are burning through some lead. Somebody is making an effort to shade everything in, and we are burning through some graphite. So again, we have today's Wednesday. We have Thursday and Friday, and then this book is done. And so we have to decide. Now I know Claudia is all for ink and wash, but the problem with ink and wash is the drying time. So we have to be willing as a group. We have to decide if we go with ink and wash. We have to remember there's drying time between when I can apply the watercolor and when I can apply the final ink. So we have to keep that in mind. I'm not opposed. I think it would be an interesting challenge. I don't recall if Elizabeth made a boat. She may have also said ink and wash. I know my mom was hip on ink and wash. But we just have to keep in mind that there's drying time if we do that. I think I'm about done here. It is 5:56. I think I've added all the detail and shading to this little toy that I'm going to be able to. I need to go back and make sure that it is not white, because the toy is not white. So I want to make sure that there's no part of it left white. It's not even shiny. There's not even any white highlights. But that's necessary to separate it from the page. Make sure that it is not. Mom says ink and wash would be difficult on Tuesdays. I don't know. Maybe we take next week and experiment with a few different techniques on what works, what kind of ink and wash. Are we going to go for accuracy with the wash, where it actually sits in the form, or are we going to go with splashes of color to accentuate? If we're going with splashes of color to accentuate, then it really wouldn't be that big of a deal, because then I can just draw it with the fountain pens, and then after the fact splash some color on it and go away. Or I can do the full-blown detail with the watercolors and then dry it, and then come back with the fountain pens after the fact, which is how ink and wash works. Or we can see how a charcoal would go. Of course, charcoal and crayon wouldn't go very different than what we're already doing. That would be right in line with the format that we're already doing. Sketch out a composition. The only difference is with the crayon, just like with the inks, you can't remove the mistakes. You can't remove the extra lines. If you add extra lines in, you can't take them back. They're there. You have to live with them. So you have to be careful with every mark. Unlike pencil and watercolor, watercolor you can lift some of it back off with tissue paper or a very stiff brush. But with crayon, it's there. It's there forever. But I think we've done about all the damage to this little buddy we can. So I'm going to call it. It is 5:59. Today is the 21st of May. So I'm going to call it. All right. Let me stop this. So here you can see here you can see the accuracy compared to the picture that we put up. But more importantly, let me show you what it was compared to what I can see. compared to what I see. You can't even hardly see that little toy. It's tiny. Anyway, that's what we did this morning. We did a little Pterodactylus. And I appreciate everybody showing up this morning. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, Mom, and Dad, and anybody else who stopped in the room that didn't chat. I appreciate you stopping by. I look forward to doing this every day. Be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel, and then we dance. We dance till somebody says they see me dancing, because that says that the lag has caught up with the stream